It is not looking good for me, I think, as I lose focus once again while peering over my talking points for tonight. It's October 9th, 2032, the night of the final presidential election debate. I had just seen polling data reflecting my doomed favorability rating. I, Christopher Brady, am currently sitting at 40%, while my opponent, Senator Duncan Browning, is at a much healthier 52%. This far in the race, that is anything but a good or even hopeful sign. This debate is truly my last chance to make a significant change in those numbers. I'm sitting backstage in my makeup room rehearsing my key points when all of a sudden my campaign manager, George Rosselli, walks in. "Sir?" he begins as I look up at him, annoyed. "Not now, George. What is it?" I say. He goes on. "Sorry to bother you, but a man named Ray Sterling is here to see you. He RSVP'd tonight and is a major donor." I pause before I eagerly put down my notes. "Okay, bring him in. Thank you, George," I say. "You bet," he says before he walks out, closing the door behind him. I'll be damned. Ray Sterling. He was a good friend of mine in college and beyond when we both worked at his father's nonprofit organization up until about 6 years ago. I haven't heard from him at all since. Maybe seeing an old friend could boost my spirits because, obviously, as prior speeches and debate performances show, I've realized that I'm not exactly the best at concealing my nervousness or mood. The door opens again, and in walks Ray, his spry step filling the room with energy. "Ray!" I exclaim as I get up and walk over to envelop him in an embrace. "What a pleasant surprise! I haven't seen you in years! How have you been, man?" "I've been alright, I guess. It hasn't really been, all that smooth sailing," he says, pointing at his chest. "You been hanging in there?" I ask, as I remember that he has a condition of an enlarged heart. He's had it ever since before I've known him. "Well, it's still beating," he says with a joyous expression. "It has been getting a bit worse over the last few years, but everything's good because I've got a great team of doctors on my side." Before things get too terribly awkward in the ensuing silence, he says, "But I know you've been doing pretty well. Dude, you're finally a presidential candidate. You've made it here." Through a slight laugh, I say, "Yeah, perhaps well would be a bit of an overstatement." Understanding what I was referring to, he says, "Yeah, I've seen the polls, but you're a better fit for the job than that guy. That's why I'm one of your top donors." "I appreciate that very much, man. Thank you," I say. "Anyway, I just wanted to stop by and wish you luck before the debate. You'll crush it, no doubt." "That's very kind of you. It's great seeing you, man," I respond. "Hey, you know what? Stick around afterwards for a bit. Our green room after these events has been a bit somber lately," I say with a grin. "You bet. I'll see you after the debate," he says before turning around to head back out the door. "Oh." He pauses and turns back to me, pulling something out of his coat pocket. He produces a small, soft jewelry case. "This was my grandfather's lucky ring," he says, putting the case down on the table next to my notes as he opens the lid, revealing a golden ring sitting within the cushion. "I want you to wear this tonight," he continues, looking at me with a soft smile. "But don't put it on until you're ready to walk out there because legend has it that the effect is spoiled if it's worn for too long." He laughs. I return his smile. "Thanks, Ray." Then George walks back in. "Sir, you have 5 minutes before they introduce you onto the stage." I nod to George, who turns and promptly exits. "I'll get out of your hair," Ray says. "I'll see you after the debate in the green room. Best of luck." Then, like George, he turns around and makes his exit. My mood is certainly lifted, and with it, my level of confidence. I stand in the mirror, making several last-minute adjustments in my appearance, such as stray hairs or spots on my suit, before turning to the table next to me, the ring still shining in its case, beaming with the lamp's reflection. Now, if I'm being totally honest, I'm not much of a believer in the superstition of lucky objects, but at this point I could use all the help I could possibly get. I reach down and take the ring out of its cushion before placing it on my right middle finger. Then, the next thing I realize, I'm sitting down in the green room's chair, surrounded by my campaign staff members and Ray flanking me on either side, clapping. I'm in shock. What the hell just happened? I think to myself.
You had him speechless.
Daniel Russell, my campaign's communications director, exclaims, beaming over at me while the television is airing a part of the debate that I'm not currently at. George is laughing and then says,
Hold on. This is my favorite part right here coming up. Just devastating.
Everyone goes silent to turn towards the television and happily watches a clip of Senator Browning and I standing at our podiums.
See, the issue about the burden on the taxpayer is that it is a burden on us all.
Thank you, Senator Browning. Mr. Brady, would you care to respond?
It wasn't such a burden on you when you used those very public tax dollars to fund your own proposed raise in 2026 while the water in your own district was poisoned, now was it, Mr. Browning?
I'm aghast. It's clearly the best performance I'd ever given, but why can't I remember any of it? How did I end up sitting here? I quickly realize everyone is watching me, so I put on a face in attempts to hide the chaos that is occurring inside my mind. Daniel, still jubilant, says,
Sir, this is going to surge your poll numbers. Great job. Pretty soon, they'll want to have you out in the press section to give a post-interview.
In my continued shock of all of this, I'm barely able to focus on his words, which snap me back into the moment. I begin nodding. I'll be ready in about 10 minutes, Daniel. You can go out and tell them that. Thank you. Daniel quickly nods before excitedly skipping out through the exit. I take a look around at the other staff members, all of whom are still looking gleefully at me, before I say, Thank you all, as always. Every one of you are making this possible. Keep up the great work. Now, if all of you can leave me for a bit, except for you, George. The other staff members, as well as Ray, walk out of the exit as George approaches me. I lower my voice to keep my order confidential. Can you arrange me an appointment with Matt? I ask him. Matt is my doctor and has been for quite some time now. Yes, sir, I can do that, George replies, pulling out his phone. Have him come to me, I continue, and please keep this private between the two of us. No problem, sir, George says, nodding as he looks down at his phone. I'll schedule it for tomorrow morning. Thank you, George, I respond. I need a bit of time to myself. I'll be out there shortly. All right, sir, no problem. I'll see you out there, he says as he leaves the room. I turn and walk over to the mirror, analyzing myself for a moment, mind ablaze with silent panic, my forehead beginning to lightly sweat. I've never had that happen before, I think. Is my health deteriorating? What all did I say on that stage? Whatever it was, everyone seemed to like it. Almost 2 whole hours of my memory just gone. Hopefully, Matt has some answers tomorrow. Oh shit, what am I going to tell the press that's waiting? I'll just stick with some generic talking points, I guess. That should be good. I give myself a reassuring nod in the mirror before turning away and exiting through the door, joining George in the hallway before we begin making our way over to the press floor. On the way over, I notice Ray joining us, walking next to me. Hey, Ray, I begin. I'm just going to give this post-debate interview and I'll join you in our bus afterwards so we can properly catch up. Hey, I say, now turning to George. Can you escort him over to the bus? I'm on it, sir, he says, giving Ray a smile. Follow me. Oh, Chris, Ray says as he turns back towards me after facing George. Don't forget this, he says, smiling before offering something in his hand. In his palm, he holds the ring from earlier. I pause for a slight second, confused. I glimpse down at my right hand to see that the ring was no longer there. I thought I was still wearing it. I smile at Ray and once again take it from him. Good luck. I'll see you soon, he says before turning around and walking away with George. I take a deep breath, standing just out of sight before the end of the hallway into the press floor, the cameras and lights surrounding the area just ahead of me. I stand up straight as I once again slip the ring onto the same finger as before. Next thing I know, I'm sitting in my private study on the bus alone with Ray, who's seated across from me, the ring being fiddled with in one of his hands, with a glass of my Kentucky bourbon in the other, looking somewhat quizzical at me. The television is set on the news coverage in the background. Horrified from this odd phenomenon of time travel that had occurred once again, I quickly looked down in front of me at the table to see a glass of slightly less bourbon in front of me as well, with fresh lip prints on the rim. Though astonished and blankly terrified, I muster up the best face I could to conceal how I'm feeling. How long have we been in here now? I ask as casually as I could. Ray's face offers a smile once again, his eyes focus unwavering. Maybe just about 3 minutes, he says. At this, I react only the way I could. Sorry, Ray, I say in an obvious and blatant panicked rush while shuffling in preparation of standing. I need to talk to George really quick. Relax. Ray cuts me off calmly. No, I really need to. Are you confused about what just happened? Ray cuts me off again with the same gentle smile. This gives me an immediate pause. I'm dumbfounded. What is the last thing you remember? He asks me, face unchanged. I was standing in the hall, about to walk onto the press floor, I say. And then? Ray asks, with an expression indicating that I am leaving something out. I put on that ring you gave me, I say slowly, now darting my eyes between Ray and the ring that still sits in his hand. I can't help but twist my face into a confused rage. What the hell did you do to me? I ask. Chris, I'll tell you, but you need to hear me out entirely, okay? My gaze sharpens intensely as I slowly nod once again. This ring was passed down to me from my grandfather just before he passed away. He begins, now looking down at his palm, shuffling the ring around within his fingers. My grandfather became a successful, wealthy entrepreneur after the internet takeover began many years ago. He said that all of his success occurred because of this little piece of gold he wore on his finger, calling it his lucky ring. He continues. He was a meek, shy, timid man throughout his entire life, and that never changed. But whenever he wore this, things really took a turn for the better. He looks up at me now and goes on. He was never cut out to be the outgoing, capable, extravagant businessman many knew him to be before he began wearing this. My gaze is still fixated on him, my confusion now pouring out of me. Okay, and? I ask. This ring, he continues on, now looking back down at it, basically turns its wearer into a superhuman by amplifying confidence and innate ability while severely dampening inhibitions as it is worn. This effect causes its host to lose consciousness while the ring does its trick. That's why you don't remember the debate nor the interview afterwards, but everyone else will certainly remember them as they were perfectly executed because of this little piece of gold. I'm staring blankly, hanging on his every word, no longer trying to hide my bewilderment. After the debate, he goes on, you were escorted into the green room to raucous applause from your team. You went around shaking hands before coming up to me last. I shook your hand as you began sitting into the seat before the television, discreetly removing the ring as I did so. And that is when you came to, am I right? I simply stare at him. Then, he continues, I did the same thing here in the bus. After we chatted for a few moments, I reached over and removed the ring from your hand. And now, here we are. I'm trying to process this, but my mind is outright refusing to carry the weight. Is this some kind of magic trick? Is Ray some sort of a huckster now? Is this some kind of joke? I ask bluntly, eyes piercing into his. It happened twice, Chris, just as I described. What more proof do you need? Look, is this why you came here? To do this voodoo trick on me? I sputter, confused anger once again spilling out of me. Chris, he begins, calmly smiling again. You've been telling me about this ambition of yours since we were in college. I want you to win this. You'll make a damn good president, but we need to convince the people first in order to get you into that office. And as you know, the polls showed that the people simply had not been convinced. But now, look at that.
He points towards the television in the corner of the room, which, as if on cue, is showing the debate survey.
We got new results coming in for you showing that Christopher Brady is at an astonishing 93% as the debate's victor here tonight.
Do you hear that? Ray exclaims joyfully. Everyone knows you won that debate. You gutted him. I look from the television back over to Ray, my face somber. This all still sounds so crazy. Okay, I say softly. All right, I appreciate the help. Without it, who knows how that debate would have gone for me. Ray, still smiling, places the ring down into its case, sitting next to him on the table. You're welcome, he says. I reach down and pick up my whiskey glass and bring it up to my lips, taking a large gulp. What is even real anymore? I think. The only question now, I begin, is how the hell am I going to replicate that kind of domineering energy? I mean, I still have a few interviews and rallies planned before the election that's now less than a month away. Ray leans back in his chair, pausing before saying, well, the thing is, I would just continue letting you use the ring, but its wearer is unable to remove it himself, as the intoxicating effect it has on the person prevents him from consciously doing so. That's why I had to remove it from you both times. I consider this before saying, well, I would just have a member of my team do it, but that would become pretty suspect. I mean, the last thing I need are leaks from within my own team about my fitness to remove a ring from my own finger, I say with air quotes. Besides, it's not like I could tell them what the ring actually does. I mean, that'll get me thrown into the loony bin for sure. As we both sit in momentary silence, I'm unable to fathom the concept of going into the next month without the ring, after experiencing the enormous optical boost it gave me with the voters tonight. I take a deep breath and ask Ray the only sensible question left. Ray, do you have any plans from now until election night by chance? I look up at him to see him grinning sheepishly at me. I return his grin with one of my own. Well, I can tell you this, he says as he sits forward in his seat. I could easily cancel those plans in service to a greater cause. Also, I just happen to have brought with me a large suitcase with enough clothes to last me for a month. He pauses before adding, Is there something you'd like to ask me? With a comically exaggerated expression of feigned confusion on his face. I can't help but start laughing as I say, all these years and you haven't changed at all, you sly bastard. I stand up and walk over to the study's door, opening it before calling down the bus's hallway. Hey, George? George stands up from his seat and walks over. Sir? He asks. Go ahead and cancel that doctor's appointment for tomorrow. Over the course of the next month, Ray tags along with my campaign team under the guise of a trusted advisor and consultant. But in reality, he really only has one job, to be there to remove the ring from my finger after our campaign events. It is a procedure that is carefully guarded between the two of us, unknown to everyone else, including my security detail. There can't be any leaks from within about what is going on. I need to finalize this victory that is now not only possible, but increasingly within my clutches as my poll numbers steadily rise and eventually surpass those of Senator Browning with each interview or rally speech that I give. Before we know it, election night befalls us on November 5th. The convention center inside the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, is packed to the walls with my lively supporters, drinks flowing freely as they're gathered to watch the state-by-state results on the giant screen, while a DJ is emceeing the event and keeping everyone entertained. Meanwhile, in our penthouse suite a few hundred floors above, Ray, the rest of the campaign staff, and I are gathered around the television, eyes glued tensely to the 70-inch flat screen in anticipation. With the current situation, there is only one more state I need to win in order to declare victory. The swing state of Florida. As the incoming vote tallies are continuously updated, I get up and walk over to the suite's kitchen and begin pouring myself some red wine before the suite erupts in loud, deafening cheers. Before I could react, Ray appears quickly at the entrance of the kitchen. Better dump that wine and pour some champagne, he says with an elated smile. I return his expression, heart racing as I place the glass down and we run back to the television so I can see it for myself. Florida has now been declared in my favor, soaring me past the necessary 270 electoral votes. I am now the declared winner of the highest office in the land. I blink back tears as my team ambushes me and each other with hugs and screams. George runs out of the kitchen and pops a champagne bottle. I grab my phone and get Senator Browning on the line, congratulating him on a hard-fought campaign while he graciously congratulates me on my victory. A crowd gathers around Daniel, cheering as he rips a prepared concession speech in half. Once I end my call with the senator, I look around to see Ray sitting on a couch all by himself. I approach him and say, "We did it, my friend." Ray begins beaming up at me, and I realize that he is heavily breathing and perspiring, trickles of sweat running from his temple, reflecting the light from the television. Before I can say anything, Daniel hurries towards me and says, "Sir, they are going nuts downstairs waiting for you," before handing me the prepared victory speech. "Thank you, Daniel." I smile at him as he nods and turns to rejoin the party. I look back at Ray. "Ray?" I ask. "Heyo!" he responds through a casual smile. He doesn't look too well. "Hey, is everything okay?" "Oh, yeah, it's nothing," Ray says between breaths before deeply exhaling and standing up. "I just had a little event, we're okay." Still looking at him, concerned, I respond intently, "Are you sure?" "Oh, yeah," Ray says, now speaking normally. "It comes and goes, I look him over for a second. "Is that what I think it is?" he asks excitedly, looking at the papers in my hand. "Yeah," I begin. "I'm about to go deliver it. I'd like for you to come with me down there. You deserve to be there close to me, as this is our victory. Without your help and your ring, this wouldn't have happened, man." Ray smiles again. "I'd be honored," he says. I pat him on the back lightly as we walk over to the door. We walk out into the hallway and are joined by 2 Secret Service agents who lead us over to the VIP elevator. The 4 of us enter inside and we are taken down to the convention floor. Once the door opens, we begin walking over to the backstage area, the loud cheering from outside the stage beginning to reach our ears. Noticeably, Ray is lagging behind, walking a little bit slower. I look ahead of us to see George standing over by the curtain, speaking with the curtain operator. I tell the security to stay where they are as I run over to George and say, "Hey, call a doctor to get Ray checked out. He's not looking too good and he has a heart condition." George quickly nods and walks away, cell phone in hand, as I walk back over to Ray and the security agents. "Hey, Ray?" I begin as I notice him sweating a bit more. "I have a doctor on the way right now to get you checked out." "I'll be fine," Ray replies, somewhat snappishly, shaking his head. He looks up at me with a soft smile. "I'll wait here for the doctor and everything will be okay. Here," he says, reaching into his suit pocket with a slightly trembling hand before producing the ring in his palm. "Go do your thing, Mr. President-elect." Then, as is our previously established confidential protocol, he leans in and quietly says, "I'll be right here to remove it afterwards." I look over at him once more with some concern. Ray detects this as he says, "I promise I'll be okay. Now you better get out there. The people are waiting." I nod before turning to meet George by the curtain. "Hey, sir," he begins. "The doctor's on his way and he'll be here shortly." "Okay," I say, feeling somewhat relieved. "Ray'll be all right. He'll have to be," I think to myself over the loud roaring sound of the ruckus on the other side of the curtain. And now the moment we've worked so hard for, I think, walking up into position behind the curtain, awaiting my introduction from the MC. I bring the ring up in my hand and gaze at it. One final speech, and then I part ways with this thing. The MC begins the introduction as I smile widely and think out loud. "I'll see you soon, Ray. Let's go." And with that, just like dozens of times before, I slide the ring onto my finger.
BBC News reports. This just in, the recently inaugurated President Brady has announced his plans for vigorous global dominance abroad, what he calls a bold new vision for America's standing worldwide.
7 Supreme Court justices have been found dead after ruling against President Brady's executive order to restrict interstate travel.
We have exercised every other possible avenue with our adversaries, and now is the time they will listen.
Approximately 600 United States missile systems have been reportedly launched en route to Beijing.
Around
As
Washington,
European allies
there are
decry
insider
President
reports
Brady, an
detailing
unrestrained
possibilities of
criminal.
invoking the 25th Amendment to remove the president from power,
This just
citing
in.
concerns
We have
of mental
confirmed reports of
instability.
intercontinental ballistic missiles entering United States airspace in retaliation
Hell
from
has
China
been
and North
unleashed on our
Korea.
nation and on the world by the hands of this Antichrist. Every major U.S. city has been destroyed. Every single one, with over 160 million dead. When does it stop?